Did Dee ever join us?
Okay, you guys are live.
All right, 6:04. We're going to call the special session as the East Otero School Board into session. Roll call, please.
Mrs. A. Ayala,
Present.
Mrs. S. Ayala,
Here.
Mrs. Hines. Here. Mr. Coleman,
Here.
Mrs. Leba.
All right. Present allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Jill, did we have anybody sign up for our audience portion?
We do not.
Okay. Moving on to item D, approval of the agenda. Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Second. I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call please.
Mrs. A. Ayala,
Aye.
Mrs. S. Ayala,
Aye.
Mrs. Hines.
Aye.
Mr. Coleman.
Aye.
All right, item 3, new business. Policy CBA/CBC. Jill, were you gonna attach?
I did.
Oh, you did, okay. Just making sure I was there. I make a motion to approve policy CBA/CBC on first reading. Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the policy on first reading. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call please.
Mrs. A. Ayala,
Aye.
Mrs. S. Ayala,
Aye.
Mrs. Hines. Aye. Mr. Coleman.
Aye.
All right. Item B. Interview questions. The last time had 21 questions, Jill?
Yes.
21 questions, and the list we were provided has 56. So, working very expeditiously, shall we just go through each page together and we can all say yay or nay?
I think also we were gonna come with our own questions.
Yes.
Because we did not like.
Yes. If you have any of those, should we go through those as well?
Should we do those first and then if we need.
Please not follow.
Which one do you say has 56? Say yes.
We want to attach to your docs.
Oh, yeah. I got it. Yeah. That's enough.
So last time we all said we felt that the questions were redundant. We asked, I think, the same thing with 4 separate times.
Since we already went through all of the questions, the ones that we already picked were the ones that we all kind of narrowed down as the ones that we liked. Can we just go over those ones? Or do we go through all 50 again? Because unless you,
Well, if we had 21 questions and we still thought there was redundancy, should we visit them? I don't know. I'm open to whatever the board would like to do.
Do we need to make a motion, then discuss and then amend the motion?
Oh, yeah, Sarah, one second anymore. Thanks, Jill. I'll need a motion. I'll make the motion. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
second,
I have a motion and a second to approve the interview questions. Now, we can have comments.
There's some of these questions I think are pretty good, and I would just like to maybe make them more specific.
Okay,
I see kind of just general, and I'd like to try to get the honest specific.
Okay, what way?
Like,
Give us an example.
like question 30, for example. I would like to break that out as to a 90-day plan, a 6-month plan, and a 1-year plan. And then another example, that's not really well specific, I guess, but question 33, I think that would be a great place to insert best grant experience. And then that's just, I mean, there's some other examples, but I just think if we can try to incorporate specific situations or policies or issues we're dealing with, I think that will help us.
If I remember correctly. What is the time window we have to ask these questions? Was it 30 minutes? It's an hour. It's an hour, yeah. Except for the interview committees they had. I want to say it was not 45 minutes or 50 minutes, it just last 10 minutes, it was supposed to be their little thing.
There, or response, yeah.
I don't remember, I remember for the notes at the end, and I don't remember what the time.
I thought,
I don't think, fine.
well, I think it was like an hour, I didn't want to say it was more than that. Why did you?
I don't remember either. Do you have any notes on that, Joe?
So the first interview session was 8:15 to 9:45. And then the second session was 10 to 11:30, and that was with team A, team B, and board. So each committee had the same amount. And then the third session was 12 to 1:30.
I know. It felt fast. It felt fast. It went really fast.
Do you have any notes about the committee group? Because I feel like you guys had the last question.
Yeah,
Your time was short. Like not maybe on schedule, but there was a lot of time after to kind of that pros and cons.
But I don't know.
I don't remember.
I don't know that.
I don't have a clear memory.
Any thoughts? So when you say what are the specific questions? You want to gather feedback on what they would do in instances just like our districts.
Correct. I would want to know, do they know about our turnaround? Do they know about our arrangements with the EDA and TV and TV? I think there's some specific things that it'd be good to know if they knew about.
yeah, if they're interviewing for the job, they should have, did some research before they came here. So, yeah, job specific answers, yeah. That's kind of what I was going off of last year, but what the answer I was given when I was wanting a question, my questions is it has to be general. So you kind of get a general of what their background is. And so I kind of understand that, but I do like your approach because that's what I want.
I think you guys went through this in a different role than I did last year. But I think that experience and having a 1-year experience, I think everybody learned a whole lot. And I don't think we need to be as general. I think we need to be very specific this time around. Because in a lot of ways, we do have a plan. We do have a roadmap right now. Last year, we didn't really have it.
But if I recall, kind of. This is kind of different about the mountains. Who did one? Mountains.
Yeah.
Do you remember? And I thought that we kept everything so broad because there is a very specific list of things you can ask.
mountains, we can ask about mountains.
Well, he was like, I kind of went to sleep over the mountains, and I'm like, you're coming to the wrong place. Mountains.
Can I throw something in there? I hear you, Greg, when you're talking about, what would be more Lohana specific. I guess in my mind, what was resonating was maybe more situation specific. You know, as to where, not necessarily just the support systems that you'd be looking at, like that TNTP, or UVA, but more along asking questions about what external partnerships have they ever had experience with, kind of naming some of those things that we can identify that Lohana is gonna use, and we're gonna want them to be proficient in. Maybe it's not just like a Lohana question, but it's like a systematic, like a system question that we know we're gonna go with this. Like, what's the experience with working with a school on turnaround? What's your experience working
Yeah.
with CDE? When we look at that grant writing, maybe it is identifying what work do you have with that best grant as to where, like, I mean, we don't necessarily, and again, I'm just speaking my mind. If they're great with best grant, even if they're not great with Lohanas, that's, we just need to be really great with the best grant and then be able to come in here and get the information they need to make the best grant good. But I hear you, it'd be nice to be a little bit more strategic. I'm just wondering if we can look at it from a system point rather than just like a Lohana point, if that makes sense. Again, I'm kind of just, I had processed all the way through, but
Well, if you look at question number 24, kind of thinking along the same lines, one of your elementary schools has declining test scores, curriculum is research-based and enters the state standards. But the building principals were elected to help teachers accountable for teaching the adopting the curriculum. Several teachers want to continue to overrate what actions we take to building environments. That's actually something similar that we addressed with the math curriculum and Canadian schools. So that is very on par for some of the things that are or is happening.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I don't see that one either, because I just read 24 and didn't see
And
that.
I was like, mine is not Facebook. I'm looking at the sample ones.
Oh,
Sample ones, because I didn't have the ones we pulled from last time, so I have to pull those.
oh, I'm just looking at the ones that you sent me.
They're the same.
Your friends that will.
Oh, it kind of says that, but it's not that called that. It's really establishing the vision of the district.
So I kind of have a list of like a few like different categories. And I just do them or, okay.
Yeah.
So this one's about community focused leadership. So it's how you build strong trusting relationships in a small community where everyone knows each other. And then along with that, what steps would you take to become visible and approachable in our school? I feel like that's something that's really important for this community. And we need to know if that's something that we're looking for.
Yes.
What is your vision for improving student outcomes in a small rural district like ours? That vision and value. So I feel like in that question, I would have them bring in the, I see you guys are working with teams to be in that everybody, so this is not. That's kind of how I see that. Why do you want to leave in a small rural district like ours? What would your priorities be in the first 6 months with us? With limited budgets, how do you prioritize spending in ways that directly impact students? What experience do you have with funding and creative funding sources to supplement limited tax funding? And then for maybe award relations, how do you build trust in relationships with the school board staff and community, and describe how you handle the situation where the board and the community had conflicting priorities?
Do we have? Sarah, do you have any other specific questions you want to add?
Little bit off, what Sarah was saying, but this is wrong. Open enrollment allows students to cross district boundaries to attend school. What steps would you implement to retain district students and attract students from surrounding districts, particularly at the secondary level?
Yeah, especially with our loss of students.
Yeah.
This will be the finance one too.
Like, there's sample questions. How would you describe your attitude slash approach to dealing with parents, with teachers, and other staff members, with students, with administrators? I like that one.
I like that one too.
There's a question in the sample questions. Understanding that resources are limited, explain how you would establish an effective budget that maintains a variety of curricular and extracurricular programs for students, retains quality staff, keeps up with the demands of the 21st century, and assures the district remains fiscally sound for the future.
I like that one too.
It's just the next question on the list, but what strategies would you employ to attract and retain quality teachers, administrators, and support personnel?
I think that was a question.
Yeah, that was one of our questions, yeah.
How many questions do we want to have total? Do we want them similar to what we did last time? One. Was that for the time? I think you could go less than that. I don't think.
Maybe we should go less or more.
I think it's good. It was like, it felt like we didn't have enough time.
Right.
Okay, so would it be easier to give us a starting point to go off of the list we had last year, take out the ones that were redundant, but some of the new ones we like?
Yes.
That makes sense. The fastest way to get that accomplished, you think?
Yeah.
Okay, so looking at the attachment we have for last year's questions. First one is tell us about your background, what your long-term and short-term goals in education. That one. Can we do in education and for our district? Within that was having a short-term goals for education. Yep. footprint out of them, or should we just tell you what we want?
Just give me the numbers.
So
That would be easiest.
from last year's question, we like number one, but she wanted to add what? Long-term and short-term goals in education and for our district.
And we're looking at the Pearson and Jacobson sample questions.
We're looking at our actual questions from the last time we did this.
Okay.
We're gonna get rid of what we think is redundant and fill in with newer questions that we like.
Let me bring that one up real quick.
It's true. As soon as you pull the document up, will you share that with me as well?
It's on Board Docs.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah,
Maybe
The
I'll
last
just,
one. Should we label the Board of Education?
Mine's not coming up. It's where you're at.
okay, so add, what else? I'm so sorry.
Long-term and short-term goals in education and in our districts.
And in our district. Okay,
you said it's that last one.
Yes.
Thank you.
The second question is share specific ways you effectively communicate with the board, other administrators, teaching staff, classified staff, and with students. Do we like that one?
I don't really read anything out of that one.
Didn't either.
And then the interview questions is like, oh, you know. But I don't know, I don't know what that.
Okay, so do we want to get rid of that one? Stacy,
Get rid of it.
replace it with something else, right?
Yep.
Okay, so then let's go with. Greg, what was the first one you liked?
Open enrollment allows students to cross district boundaries to attend a school. What steps would you implement to retain district students and attract students from surrounding districts, particularly at the secondary level?
And that's the McPherson's question sample.
I'm not sure, it's just a sample interview question.
What number is it?
55.
that might be some that we got from Casby.
It was
Got
attached. It was in.
So we like that sample question number 55. Everybody on board with that?
It was in our board doc.
Yeah.
Attached, yeah.
So 55.
55?
50.
Ladies, yes. Okay, the next one, knowing we have a teacher shortage and many teachers in alternative licensure programs, how do you address marginally effective teachers or administrators? Do we like that question?
Be happy to pick that out and add something we guys would like to do.
I like the question, but it does leave a little bit to be desired.
Yeah.
I think I would add, in a rural setting.
Yeah.
Because you have to be more selective in a rural setting with your marginal whatevers.
Yeah.
So knowing we have a teacher shortage and many teachers in alternative licensure programs, how do you address marginally effective teachers or administrators in a rural setting? Okay. Number 4, what methods would be used to keep all internal staff informed about critical school issues? Right. I agree.
I agree.
If I recall, we got a lot of emails. That's how it works. Okay, Stacy, which one was the first one you liked?
It's a finance one that he read off. I forgot. What was
Was
the finance
it
one?
30, was it 33?
33.
I could be,
Because I was like, we need a
I
finance
thought
one.
33 was stuff.
Second. Okay, it was this sample question, Jill. It's 22.
Okay.
Yeah,
Under- Understanding that resources are limited, explain how you would establish an effective budget contains a variety of curricular and extracurricular programs
Yeah.
for students, contains all the staff, so with the demands of the 21st century, and assures the district remains fiscally sound for the future.
Okay. I'm on board with that. Anybody else?
No.
Okay. So now we're on to number 5. Describe how you would initiate dialogue to gain community support for the construction of new school facilities. I feel like every answer was a best friend. I agree with it. Okay, Sarah, what's the first question you liked?
We're getting rid of that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Describe how you handle the situation with the board.
Which, that your own question?
What number?
There's not.
Sarah's made up question.
Oh. Okay. Tell me again.
Describe how you handle the situation where the board. Priority.
A situation where the board and community
Have conflicting priorities.
conflicting priorities. Okay.
Okay, we all happy with that? Okay. Number 6, describe the process you would use to establish a vision for the school district. What strategies would you implement to create an atmosphere of stability and continuity while at the same time initiating change for school improvement? I don't know that one.
I don't. I would like something more with like, because we're about to get into strategic planning, I would like the question with that more encapsulated, but I don't know. Kind of sounds like it, but it also kind of just sounded. Like what experience do you have with that? Like strategic planning, I would say one. Is there any in here? Let me see, I think I might have one. Hold on.
There's one in here, what actions would you take to form effective relationships with staff, community, other governmental agencies to provide for clear communications, build trust, and create a unity of vision? Well, I don't know what you
Didn't we just rethink our entire mission statement? Didn't we just do all that with PBA? We created our mission statement and our big rocks. While we'd love to hear their thoughts on it, we really don't think we
Yeah.
our vote.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's true, yeah, so get rid of
Well,
one
that's
kind
the
of.
right answer.
Not a plan, you're so planned.
Yeah.
It is.
So what about, so this, it says, tell us about a time when you led or contributed to a district-wide strategic planning process. How did your effort fund the community staff to how to measure things?
Yeah, that's that, yeah, there,
That was that.
Yeah, your own one?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have it numbered on yours or no? Okay, I just was writing down.
No.
Okay, I'm calling Sarah number 2. And this is replacing question 6.
Yeah, 6, that's what it said. And C7 is kind of C.
7 is very similar. And I think because we added and in our school district to the first question, it kind of covers that. I'm not in love with number 7, but what are your guys' thoughts?
Yes.
Yeah,
We did.
we can cut down some of these.
The first one that I liked is how would you describe your attitude and approach in dealing with parents, with teachers and other staff members, with students, with administrators? That's number 15, Jill, on the sample interview questions are 2024 from Pearson Jacobson.
Do I get that number one more time?
Number 15.
You want that to replace number 7.
Hey,
I still like this.
do you remember the film that was on? and
I know.
Wanted us to add, what was it? Quality?
It was diversity.
It was diversity, did that, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
it was,
I'm pretty sure it was this question. Okay,
Yeah.
I still like this question.
I do. Is there a way to word it to? Experience, what is your,
What about how would you ensure that every student, regardless of their background, ability, or identity, feels seen, supported, and successful? I don't, I just feel like with this question, it was very short and it was being answered.
And if I remember correctly, one of the candidates was like, what was that?
and I think that's the point, is to see if they know what it is.
What about how would you help our staff build cultural awareness? These are students in the different something.
Yeah, but diversity, equity, and inclusion practices, I mean, it encompasses more than just
that, yeah.
that.
That's why it's kind of like vague like that, so they give you an answer, like the full answer of like everything in there.
And she was very specific about the word diversity in there.
What if we just say, what is your experience? You could say something like, what supports could you sustain or implement that would provide reciprocally to the practices? So that they're identifying like, what is the strategic steps they're actually doing, instead of just their experience with it.
What if they don't have any experience with diversity, equity, inclusion practices?
Because from that, they'd have to shift to say what they would do to solve that. You know, and I guess I'm trying to put myself in their shoes too. If it comes to something where I haven't implemented a system, I would have to recall on what I think a good system would look like and how I would try to unroll that. And then I'd have to put the steps out to people.
I'm okay.
I don't know how to reword it.
Say your wording again.
I just was trying to think of a way to change experience, so like structure, so like how would you structure, or what structure and systems would you put in place to ensure diversity, equity, and inclusion practices? Like you could say daily or a priority or something along those lines. Make it more about the systems and structures that they could put in place to ensure that happens.
Could we then get off track with things they would implement but haven't actually utilized? I mean, we'd love to see this in a perfect world, but over here, I didn't really do all that. I just did this instead. So I think this question is clear. And what is your experience with it? How far have you taken it?
That's why it was so direct.
So then maybe to include what Jared said is what's your experience, and then also what would you.
Can we put Lord on the end? It's too hard.
Is to have that first part and then,
What was your experience and how would you improve this, or what systems would you use to improve these practices?
Yeah.
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 Tell me again.
Yeah, because it's kind of.
So number 8, all we're gonna do with number 8 is we're gonna add some, what is your experience with diversity, equity, and inclusional practices? And then, I don't want to put it because it's like part 2, we could even put a comment say, and how would you implement systems? How do I say that? And what systems do you use to enhance?
Said support in there somewhere.
I did. We need to keep going, I can go back and see how it works out. Well, I'm gonna watch the footage after and go back and see. To what time it is. 6:30.
Okay, so we kind of have what we want there.
Let me work on that.
Circle
We'll
back.
circle back.
Number 9, describe your experience and background in school finance and budgeting. As blunt as that question is, I think blunt is the best way to ask it. Are we all good with number 9?
Yep.
Number 10, academics, athletics, and arts for school resources. What is the relative importance of each and how might a district find the proper balance between them?
I love that one.
But did we already kind of ask it with the first one grade put in?
So I took Greg's question as to how we're gonna find funding.
Funding for it, yeah.
That's where it's going. I took this one as it relates to our districts, how people say we place on athletics over our academics, that's how I took it.
Yeah.
You
You think?
I think the words athletics and arts are too important.
So we are okay with number 10? Okay, number 11, with the school finance landscape changing, tough budgetary decisions have to be made. Having established funding priorities and how are they taken?
I kind of feel like we've asked that.
Yeah.
Already.
Um.
Back in. The school, and then in 10 a little bit.
I can take number 11 with establishing what this comes first in the budget. Do we buy buses? Do we buy computers? Do we buy whatever? Do we feel like we've asked that somewhere else? We've asked about extracurriculars, we've asked specifically about competing programs. We've asked about budget and finance experience directly. I don't. Similar to the one that the limited budgets, how do you prioritize spending with the director to towns? But then we didn't see that in the end, right?
No, we haven't, but it's similar.
Okay. I like number 11.
Okay.
I think it ties really well into number 12.
Agreed.
What approach would you take to attract additional revenue for the school district? What are your experiences in grant writing? I think that's super important. Just considering where we are at the moment. Are we okay with leaving 12 as well?
Yes.
Okay, number 13, how do you balance the desire to compensate employees with the budgetary restrictions placed upon the district? What are other ways outside the negotiation process you have been able to reward great performance? I don't know. Yeah, so we got a lot of array of responses last time that were very
Any?
Are you okay with number
Yeah.
13?
I'm fine.
Okay, I also like 14. Okay, I feel like, you're good? Yeah, so describe a failure, something that did not go to plan, how did you deal with that, what did you learn from experience, how does that influence the work? I don't know.
I think we got good responses to those ones too.
Okay, so we want to leave 14? Okay, number 15, describe time to provide the leadership around the issue / effort you knew / believe right, but may have been controversial. How did you know it was right? How did you develop the leadership plan and strategies? What happened? What did you do differently?
I like this one.
I don't remember getting the meeting.
I remember the answer in my head. Like,
I don't know. Yeah.
I remember that. I remember when it is, I forget in my head really loud, so yeah, I like this one, but I can't remember the other ones.
Now, remember, when we ask them, we can't ask any follow-up anymore.
Yeah.
However you ask it is how you have to ask. it.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on then, we're gonna leave that on number 16, describe how you created, who you involved, how they were involved, how the plan was utilized, the district vision and long-range strategic plan. We've asked this,
Yeah.
okay? Everyone's picked one, so it's back to you, what's your second favorite?
I think we've asked this specifically, but describe your leadership style and how it can be successful and how it has been successful in the past experience, including an example of how you came to successful conflict resolution. This is the part I really like. What would you improve about your leadership style?
Okay, I like that one.
I like it, I don't back it.
So number 14, Greg.
Yes.
All right, on to number 17. If you were hired, would you be willing to spend some time in our district prior to your start date for planning and reviewing policies and procedures in order to familiarize yourself with the district? So we would complete that out. There's gonna be new.
Maybe.
Could we then rephrase that? Asking, what background information, or what type of research they've done on our district?
Yeah.
Prepare themselves to come here? I like that.
Yeah. Prior coming, yeah, I like that.
Then we're gonna find out if they really were like. Doing some search team on us.
Yeah.
Or watched our board meeting.
Okay, so how do we want that to sound? What have you learned about our districts prior to the interview process?
Or what are the best and worst things about my district?
Ooh, you wanna take it like that?
Yeah.
What if it was twofold? What did you learn about our district prior to coming here for an interview?
What caught,
What are the three?
what caught
Yes.
your eye to make you, yeah,
Yeah.
what enticed you to come here?
Yeah.
So buy, and take that,
Through, we're
take
gonna,
that large,
what are
jump.
three best that works for us? We're gonna get some feedback on that one.
Doc.
Can we talk about like an identified area of improvement with that?
That's
Make it
good.
a twofold, just say,
Oh,
hey,
yeah.
what drew you here? And what is your top 2 areas of improvement that you've seen in our district or that you would take on as our district leader? And then leave it under the sun, because there's a lot they could pick from and which way they want to go. It allows them to kind of highlight where it got to us, but also not sugarcoat why they're here. They're gonna have to know, things that need cleaned up and be able to talk about the ones they've seen so far.
Okay.
Yep.
What do you say, Joe?
So I've got 3 questions here. The first question is, what did you learn about our district prior to the interview process? Next question, what enticed you to come here? Last question, what are the top 2 areas that you would take on as our leader?
I like it. So I think the first two can be combined as one.
Okay.
What did you learn about our district?
And what enticed you
come
here? Okay,
And if we look at number 18 on here,
Exactly.
we can take that third piece and make it its own question.
Yeah.
And replace number 18. Go. Alright, because this is based on your
Yeah.
research and observation, what excites you about becoming our next superintendent?
so
Okay,
leave that first part of 18
yes,
and then put, what are the top 2 areas that we would take on as our leader at the end of 18?
yeah, that might
I
help
would
us reach
call
the
it
higher. That could-
Yes, I would call it areas for improvement to gain that higher.
Higher effectiveness, yeah.
What areas of improvement?
Okay, so 19 says based on what you've learned about our district, what personal strengths can you bring to our schools and community to help us improve? What do you see as our biggest challenge going forward? I think that kind of is a repeat of the two.
Yeah.
So should. Thanks, do you have a second favorite? Either of you?
Either what would your priorities be in your first 6 months with that, or what your plan is for the first 100 days?
I think the priority for the first 6 months kind of ties into the top two places they see need, and then what's your first plan? So, what are your top priorities, top 6 priorities? Say it again.
Oh, I just put, what would your priorities be in participants?
What would your priorities be in the first 6 months with us? Is that,
That's kind of good. That's good.
Because if they know, if they do research on the district, they should know what we're doing and what should be ahead of them in the next 6 months.
And it also allows them to see, it allows the interviews to see into like how this individual answers. Whether they're gonna take like just an academic look, a financial perspective, a leadership, cultural perspective, it just kind of lets the interviewers know. What is that gonna look like? Cause you can answer that a lot different ways of what you're thinking is gonna, yeah, I like being that open with it.
okay, so that will replace number 19.
Okay.
20, are there areas of being an educational leader where you think it's going to grow? I think we got a lot of very canned answers. It was a very fast yes. And then some people elaborated and some people didn't.
When I think of this one, anyone you ask, they're like, oh, no, there's always room to grow. Now, what else? Right. I don't get anything out of this one, but
Do we have a secondary question that we would like in place of that instead?
Dude,
what about your elementary school question? That you had, that was number 24.
And number 24. Number 24, the sample interview questions, it says. One of your elementary schools have defined test scores, the curriculum is research-based and there's state standards, but we don't have schools elected. Not that, very defined. You like that one? Yeah, one of our intermediate schools.
one of,
I like that one.
It kind of could be interesting too to. If we just said a struggling school and leave the interpretation up to them, because one, they should have an idea of what we're struggling with, but two. Kind of gives an idea, are they more comfortable at the secondary level, intermediate level, primary level? I mean, again, they're probably gonna talk about whatever they're most comfortable with, it gives us kind of a perspective, of that, just to figure that out there.
Okay, so we'll go with number 24 off of that sample interview questions. And we'll change it to say, one of your struggling schools has to find the test scores, not really saying what level it's at.
One of ours.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then 21.
21 is, they go like that.
I'm pretty sure we're totally past.
I don't
that.
think there's, maybe I missed it, did we ask anything in there about, recruitment and retention?
Oh,
Didn't
We,
Yeah, it's about,
Ways they could support staff
Oh, yeah,
that
yeah,
were
yeah.
not financial, I think is how it was kind of worded.
and then also did we ask about?
what was number
bringing-
1?
no, number 13 is the staff one that Jared's talking about. Number 1,
Yeah, in a rural setting or something like that. That was
yeah.
the level of teachers that weren't
Yeah.
required.
Yeah.
yeah, I think we have to end with this one just so it like wraps it
number
up.
1, I have, tell us about your background and what are your long-term and short-term goals in education and in our district.
I think we added one though about.
Number 3 is where we added in a rural setting at the end.
Right.
Is it 3? We just added that at the end of it. Knowing we have a teacher shortage and yeah,
So number 3, yeah, knowing
we
we have
kept
a
it, we
teacher
just
shortage.
added that at the end, okay, so it
Yeah.
still kind of
Yeah.
says that, yeah. We didn't take it out.
That kind of falls under retention now.
Yeah.
Doesn't have anything to do with recruitment, but it does fall into the retention line.
What if we added?
How do you, sorry. Have you recruited new teachers?
Well, you haven't addressed marginally effective teachers or administrators and recruit new ones.
I know that you had mentioned number 23 on the sample questions. What strategies would you employ to attract and retain quality teachers, administrators, and support personnel? Could we mash those together?
Yeah.
I think we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they go together.
Yeah.
And so this we talked about our current students, and then the next, that we talked about. Bringing you up then.
So just stick that second question on the end of the first.
Okay, that's staying in line with the 21 questions that we had last time. If you recall, we were right at the time on some of those. Do we have anything else to discuss with those? So we have our question list set. Any more questions or comments based on that? Roll call, please.
Mrs. A. Ayala,
Aye.
Mrs. S. Ayala,
Aye.
Mrs. Hines,
Aye.
Mr. Colomans.
Aye.
Okay, the last item we have is determine superintendent interview today.
I make a motion to approve the list of interested people for interview committee.
Second. I have a motion and a second to approve the superintendent search interview committee. As discussed. Questions or comments?
There was a lot on the list, so we had to kind of draw names.
I appreciate everyone's interest. It's nice of people wanting to be part of this.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
So that's a question. That suffices, yes. Okay, nothing else on that? Roll call, please.
Mrs. A. Ayala,
Aye.
Mrs. S. Ayala,
Aye.
Mrs. Hines,
Aye.
Mr. Colomans.
Aye.
Item 4, board comments.
I just have one quick comment, as to do with the, update that Jared and Mitchie sent us on the 5th. What's the status of the bookkeeper search, or how's that going?
To fill Nelson's
Yeah.
position. Right now, I double checked again in our system, to see if I had to apply. I'm still not showing any kids for that position.
Is there a timeline on that to fill out?
We did discuss it, Richie and I actually discussed it this afternoon on whether it was something we needed to extend or if it was something that we wanted to communicate with Abacus to see if there were still some services that they could provide in this kind of limbo phase until we get someone hired. And so we're waiting to see what we could get back from Abacus to see what that looks like to kind of change the urgency of this.
And then the second thing is, and it's a personnel matter, so I'm just going to go on the record and say. The personnel decision that you outlined, I disagree. I'll just leave.
Okay, do we have any other comments? Thank you guys for coming for a special meeting. I appreciate setting aside the time. Our live streamers, thank you. Joe, thank you. Jared, thank you. Nothing else, we'll adjourn.